It is time, finally, to get on to my third lot of 3 series in the SAS list that I've completed this year, spoiler-free reviews. And today, we have a theme. Welcome to Male Romance Contemporary time here at the Mr. Francy channel. Let's go! Yes, hello and welcome back to welcome or welcome back to the Mr. Francy channel. I am Mr. Francy and I'm so glad that you were able to join me today for another 3 times SAS list series spoiler-free review video. If there is a way to simplify the title that you know of, please let me know in the comments below because I don't know how to simplify that. But anyway, I am reviewing 3 series I'm sorry about the lighting, I do apologize, there's just nothing I can do about it. So blanket apology right there. Moving forward, the 3 series that I am going to be discussing with you today, all of my reviews and all of the reviews will be spoiler-free, but all 3 series have one thing in common, and that is that we're dealing with male contemporary romance books. Now, I did not necessarily intend for this to happen. I am reviewing my series on my SAS list in the order that I completed them, and these 3 series just happened to be completed one after the other, so it's just the order that it's in. Alright, let's begin. The first series we're going to be discussing today is the Londing Calling duology by Alexis Hall. Book number 1 is boyfriend material, and book number 2 is husband material. Okay, so let's jump right on in, shall we, and discuss the premise of the series in a spoiler-free way. Luke O'Donnell is famous thanks to his parents. He works at a voluntary non-for-profit. However, his outside of work antics are not helped by the paparazzi, and they have his boss leaving him with one proposition: find a fake boyfriend and smarten up your image or you are out. Enter Oliver Blackwood, the perfect man for the role, who couldn't be any more opposite to Luke, and you have a recipe for hilarity. Oh my goodness. So, the way that I review these series is that I'm going to give you 3 spoiler-free pros and 3 spoiler-free cons to help you to determine if this is the series for you. Now, just because something may be a con for me or a pro for me doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the case for you, but by explaining my reason why I think it's a con or I think it's a pro should help you to determine that. So let's continue on. Londing Calling. Let's do this. The first con I have is specifically for book number 1. Luke makes some really out there choices, and it, just seemed a bit weird when you read it. So, characters, they'll make decisions that readers, may not necessarily agree with, but it's one thing to not agree with something, quite another for it to really appear like it's come from out of left field. And that does happen. I'm not saying it happens often, but it does happen. If that is something that you think may annoy you, there's your heads up. But let's talk about the first pro for the series, and oh my gosh, I can say this without a shadow of a doubt with book 1 and with book 2, the humour has to be the first pro that I give you for this series. I could not stop laughing with this book or this book. Alexis Hall's humour is off the charts for me, and it is something for me, like, I can laugh in all different ways when I'm reading a book, and depending upon how I'm laughing, that really shows how great the humour is. Sometimes I'll just be like, oh, that's funny, and move on. Other times, just in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, that was silly. That was funny, haha. And then there are times where I am seriously laughing so much that I need to put the book down. And that didn't happen once. It didn't happen twice. It happened many, 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 many times with both book one and book two. If you are looking for a duology that is going to crack you up and have you laughing all the way through, I highly recommend this duology because Alexis Hall's humor, fantastic. Speaking of things that seemed really out of left field, I want to specifically talk about a con with boyfriend material, and my second con is the out of nowhere there was suddenly an issue con. Yeah, so I don't know if this is actually a trope or not, but if it is, it's certainly one that I'm not a fan of, that out of nowhere an issue occurs. And let me tell you exactly what I mean, because I can spoil this, because the spoiler I'm going to give you is completely insignificant, but it makes my point. So we have these two that we're following, Luke and Oliver, and one night they go to bed, they're just, sleeping, they're exhausted, it's been a long day, but, no issue, everyone's happy, everything's good, they fall asleep. The next day, the second person to wakes up to see that the first person is not only up, they are dressed and getting ready to leave, and the first thing they tell this person is, this isn't going to work. It really came from out of left field. I don't like the breakup trope in romances anyway. I understand that there needs to be drama in every sort of book for it to be entertaining to people, but for me, I would much rather the drama not come at the cost of the relationship itself. I would much prefer to read a romance where we deal with two characters that are very much in love, and the drama that's occurring is a drama that both of them are working together to get through, rather than working against each other, because to me, it's a cliche at this point that whenever I read a romance, I know at some point the characters are going to break up and then get back together. And that annoys me. But in this particular case, they went to bed, everything was fine, they woke up the next day, person one is already up and dressed, person two wakes up going, oh, what are you doing up? Oh, you're dressed, in a groggy way because they've just woken up, but at the same time, it's like, we had a pleasant night, are you in a rush to go somewhere? And the other person turns around and goes, yeah, this isn't going to work, bye. Like, hang on, no. No. You were fine. Literally the night before, you both said, I love you, we're very happy here, and then the next morning, I can't do it. What happened? Did you have a bad dream? It wasn't explained. Very much annoyed me. The second pro that I want to discuss with both of these is that Luke and Oliver are characters that you can't help but root for. Anytime that either of them, sorry again about the lighting, anytime that either of them get into any sort of an issue, you can't help but want to kind of jump into the book and give them a hug. Rootable characters are definitely something that makes books work for me, because if I'm not rooting for you, or if I'm not at least invested in you, because hey, your character may be a villain in a book, and maybe I'm not rooting for you to win, but I'm at least invested in what you're doing. But if I'm not at least invested in characters, then it's just not going to work for me. Both of these characters are not only very easily investable, but they are characters you want to root for. A big plus. For con number 3, I'm going to refer to husband material specifically, and I just want to make the point that there is some really hard-hitting stuff that occurs in this one. Nowhere near as much with this one. So book number 1 is a lot more light-hearted than book number 2. A lot of things come to light about Luke that Luke needs to deal with, and it's not always easy to deal with as a reader. So yeah, you might look at these books and go, oh, fluffy romance contemporaries, and Mr. Francy is saying that they're humorous. Yeah, absolutely they are, but that doesn't mean that book number 2 is not necessarily a hard-hitting contemporary that can be hilarious as well. So be mindful, it is very hard-hitting. In saying that, my final pro will be for husband material, and that is Luke and Connor? I forgot his name. Oliver. Connor's the next one we're going to talk about. That's why I'm getting confused. Luke and Oliver do have arguments in this book. You expect couples to have arguments in books. It happens. It's fine. But the arguments are very, very mature. And I really, really appreciated it. So if I'm going to, condense that, I'm going to say the character arc from both of them, from book 1 to book 2, huge difference, and really appreciated the matureness of the arguments in the second book. If any of this sounds appealing to you, I highly recommend at least picking up boyfriend material and enjoying it for the humor that it is. If this book compels you to pick up this one, go right ahead, pick it up, because it is still a really, really good book, and high praise to Alexis Hall. The second series we're going to talk to, the second series we're going to talk about is not a series, even though it is grouped on Goodreads as a series, so please be very careful to make that note and that distinction, because I don't mention that in my cons. So yeah, be mindful of that. Anyway, I'm talking about the True Colors companion books, okay? Not series, companion books. We follow 2 characters in this book. We follow 2 characters in this book. They are not the same characters that we follow. The 2 characters we follow in this book are friends with the 2 characters we follow in this book. However, we don't really see much at all of the 2 characters from this book in this one, which really let me down with this one. That being said, let's jump into the pros and cons. Con number 1 is a general con for both books in this, I was about to say series again, companion situation. And that is to prepare yourself to have your ear talked off about the RPG card game that is made up in this world called Odyssey. Okay, seriously, they don't shut up about this card game the whole time. I'm going to admit that. I love this book, but even in this one, it was a bit much. By the time I got to the end of this one, I never wanted to hear about the card game Odyssey again. If you know that saying, if I hear it, in a long, if I never hear it again, it'd be too soon, basically. That's where I was at, because it was just way too much. There were other things I felt Annabeth Albert could have spent more time focusing on, if not for having to talk about Odyssey as much as she did. In saying that, the first pro for this book, not this one, for this book, Conventionally Yours, has to be the fact that someone like me, sorry again about the lighting, someone like me who is not an RPG gamer by any stretch at all of the imagination, can completely understand not only what RPGing is, but also what Odyssey is, why the characters love it, not why the characters love it because the characters explain why they do. I mean, you can understand why the characters love it based off of what you learn that Odyssey is about. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And that all comes back down to world building, because we're dealing, yes, RPGing is something that takes place in our world. However, Odyssey is completely made up by the author. So as much as the con is your ear is going to be talked off about Odyssey, that's for sure, the good thing is, even if you know nothing about RPGing, you don't need to. Annabeth Albert is more than happy to explain to you what that is, why, how it takes shape in with Odyssey, and what Odyssey is all about, so that you are aware and don't feel like you're ignorant in any way. And that is a really big plus for Annabeth Albert. Apparently I was wrong. What I was saying earlier about this book and the difference between the two is actually my second con, so I'm sorry that I spoiled that earlier. But yeah, con number 2 absolutely for me needs to be that it's not a series. It's 2 companion books. Had I known going in that they were companion books, I would have done things a lot differently with Out of Character. I reread this book before reading this one because I wanted to remember every minor detail I might have forgotten because it had been a while since I'd read Conventionally Yours. I got through it and then realized I didn't need to because this is a whole completely different story. I mean, yes, we're following characters from this world that are not these characters. Yes, these characters do appear in this book for 5% only, but it's a completely different story and that just annoys me. So yeah, if that's something that's going to annoy you, I would say just think about it as the True Colors world or universe as opposed to the True Colors series. The second pro I'm going to give you is specifically about Conventionally Yours. Honestly, as much as I really didn't enjoy this one, I thought it was an average read, is just as much as I loved... Oh my gosh, I'm sorry again about the lighting. I don't know why it's doing that this frequently. I'm so sorry. Is as much as I loved Conventionally Yours. So yeah, the second pro that I have specifically is the anxiety representation, which equals also to the research that Annabeth Albert did on anxiety before writing the perspective of Alden. Alden is anxiety ridden. I in fact actually didn't read the premise to you, so here we go. The premise for this one is Alden is anxiety-ridden, Conrad is poor, both couldn't be any more opposite, but when Alden admits he will never fly in a plane and Conrad can't afford the airfare, the pair are forced together on a road trip to play the RPG game Odyssey that they are so passionate about. But it'll be hell riding together, right? Or will it? Okay, so now that you know that premise, and you know that Alden is anxiety-ridden, as someone myself who does suffer from anxiety, I make no qualms about that. I've spoken about it before in... I'm sorry, really getting annoyed with the lighting. I've spoken about that before in many different weekly vlogs, so yeah, it is there. I don't hide that. It's nice to feel seen. Not only did I appreciate that Annabeth Albert had clearly researched anxiety, but the fact that she had chosen to make this book, and this is the same thing, both of them are dual perspective books, really allows the reader, if you have never suffered from anxiety, to get into the mindset of someone that does. Alden is written so well. I could talk about this forever and ever and ever and ever. And honestly, I think I've actually done a spoiler-free review of this book on its own. So feel free to check that out. Just go to the search page and type in Mr. Francy, Conventionally Yours. I'm sure it'll pop up. And yeah, even then I was praising it. It was so well done. It was really nice to be seen. If you have trouble understanding the perspective of anxiety, or you feel like you're not being seen when it comes to anxious characters and you suffer from anxiety, this is definitely the book for you. Con number 3 is that book number 2, companion book, really is a letdown in comparison to book number 1. Yes, absolutely, I was disappointed by the fact that we're following different characters in this one compared to this one, but even not taking that into consideration, this one was a significant letdown compared to this one. Honestly, it felt very cliche and nowhere near as entertaining as this one, which now leads me to my third and final pro, which is definitely not to be underestimated, although some people may say, Mr. Francy, that isn't a pro, it just is what it is. But to me, it absolutely is a pro, and that is Annabeth Albert's writing style is incredibly easy to read. That is a massive pro for me, and I believe a massive pro for readers in general. The easier an author's writing style is to read, the more hands of potential readers or advanced readers that these books are going to get into, the more hands they will get into, because anyone can read them. There are classic books, this shelf up at the top there where you see the koala there, those are my classic books. There are some classic books that I struggle big time to read because the writing style is very hard. There are some literary fiction books that I've read where the writing style is extremely hard. There are standard even fantasy books I've read where the writer intended to and therefore did use purple prose, and it really can annoy me. Like, honestly, I'm sorry, I'm going to give you a quick example. Nevernight by J. Christoph. Just wasn't a fan. Way too many similes, way too many metaphors, not necessary. If I need to translate what I am reading while I'm reading it, that is additional work that I'm doing that I don't want to be doing when I'm trying to enjoy reading a book. So, don't take it for granted. Pro number 3 is that Annabeth Albert's writing style is incredibly easy to consume. If any of this has appealed to you, I highly recommend picking up Conventionally Yours. I'm going to be honest, I can't put this book in the same frame and say I honestly recommend picking up both. I don't. I honestly recommend picking up Conventionally Yours. It is a fantastic read with some very likable characters. Give this one a go. But if you're going to, read this one first. Then read this one. This one does contain spoilers for this one in that 5% where we see the characters from this book in this one. So do that anyway. But yeah, highly recommend this one. Highly recommend. The third series I'm going to talk to you about takes a massive leap from the first two. The first two books that I spoke to you about are YA or adult romantic contemporaries. The next series, which is a series by the way, so that's a massive pro already, and that's definitely not a pro listed that I've listed, but yeah, massive pro. But the big difference between those two and this series that we're going to discuss is those two are romantic contemporaries. This one is basically a spice series. I cannot overemphasize and reiterate that enough. It is a spicy series. The purpose of the series is the spice. So if that does not appeal to you, if any type of spice doesn't appeal to you, it won't be the series for you. I'm going to tell you that right away. If you don't mind a little bit of spice here and there, as long as it's on a low level, I don't recommend the series to you because that's not the case. It is not a low level of spice, and there is a lot of it, and it's 10 out of 10 spice. So do be mindful of all of that, and do be mindful that that is the purpose of the entire series. In saying that, if that does appeal to you, let's move on to this series because I absolutely do love it. It is called the Housemates series, and it is by Jay Northcott. Now, the basic premise of this series as a whole, and yeah, you can probably tell it's a, oh, my light just went out. I'm so sorry. You probably can tell just by looking at the cover that, the series is a spicy series. I mean, literally every cover basically shows it's a spicy series. But anyway, yeah, so the basic premise overall is the series is set in a house that is just on or just off campus of a university that has housemates that go to the university. And in each book, we follow a different housemate from that house. So we get to know more about them as we go along in every single book. We do with every housemate, but each book has a different housemate's perspective. So, pros and cons. Specifically about book number 1, my first con is going to be that this book is spice, and that's all it is. There is maybe 5% of standard prose outside of the spice, and that's all. So if you are looking for a very short, because this is incredibly short, it's 125 pages long. If you are looking for an incredibly short, nothing but spice book, I highly recommend it. That will be a pro for you. But I feel like most people would see that as a con because there should be more to a spicy book than just the spice. Pro number 2 is that from book 2 onwards, there is a lot more standard prose. The character arcs are a lot bigger. There's more growth. There's a lot more that goes on outside of the spice compared to book 1. So if you are someone who's happy or who doesn't mind really high spicy scenes in books as long as there is more, I would say probably skip book 1. Read the premise of it or get someone to spoil it for you. I'm happy to spoil it for you if you want me to. But you can skip book 1 in that case and jump directly onto book 2 and you'll enjoy the rest of the series. But if you're in this just for the spice and the spice alone, I still think you'll enjoy every single book in the series anyway because the spice is extremely spicy. And if that's what you're after, if that's what you like, you will love it. But yeah, if you want more than just the spice, skip book 1, go straight on to the rest of the series. I don't have this as a con, but I was looking through some reviews because I was struggling to come up with cons for this series because quite frankly, I love this series. And I think most of the books received 5 stars. But one con that did come up for a reviewer that I thought maybe a lot of people might have issues with is that there are evident insecurities in every book. So, for example, I can't do this because he'll leave me. And yeah, I can understand how that would be annoying. I can appreciate the anxiety of where that comes from these characters who are thinking this. But if that is something that you just don't want to deal with, yeah, it is a con then for you and certainly something to be validated. Pro number 2, excuse me, I lost my voice there. Pro number 2 is despite the fact that every single book is extremely 10 out of 10 spicy, every character is very easily distinguishable from the other, which is fantastic because honestly, the point of the series is that it's a spicy series. You can have very dull, bland characters that are all the same, and Jane Northcote didn't do that. They are incredibly varied characters, and that's an absolute pro for me, and if it is for you too, yay. Con number 3 for the series would have to be the miscommunication / lack of communication trope. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what that trope is, once it was described to me, and I've thought of it that way ever since, I'll say the same to you, the lack of communication trope is a situation where in romances, honestly, it doesn't really seem to happen anywhere else, but mainly in romances, where one character thinks that something is something because perception is reality. In their mind, it is this thing. However, had they just gone and spoken to the other person, had they gone and communicated to the other person or people involved, they would have found out very quickly, no, this is not what the situation is. So the miscommunication trope and lack of communication trope does exist in this series. If that is frustrating for you, that is definitely something to keep in mind. The final pro that I want to give you for this series is despite the fact that it is definitely a spicy 10 out of 10 series, I've said it many times because it bears repeating. If you go into this series and you come back to me and you say, Mr. Francy, it is really spicy, I'm going to say, well, yes, I told you that, because it is really spicy. But despite the fact that it is incredibly spicy, there are incredibly important topics of conversation that come up in this book, especially to do with the gay world. Now, I don't want to say the LGBTIQ plus community because this is a gay series. So in the gay male world in real life, there are some big issues, as there are in any community, and they are actually brought to light in these books, which I incredibly appreciate. So there you go. If those pros or cons are determining factors for you, let me know in the comments below. And now for everyone's favourite game that we like to call Up. These are the books and series, sometimes series, that I discussed in this video. If you have any other comments, thoughts, and or questions, please do not hesitate to leave them in the comments section below. I am more than happy to go into detail with you if you need any more detail, or if there's anything else you want confirmed. I am definitely like that. When I know someone or other people that have read certain books, I'm very quickly going to say, does this contain this? This is a deal breaker for me. This is not. If you have any of those questions, please do not hesitate to reach out by leaving a comment in the space below, and I'll more than happily discuss that with you there. But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it. I hope you're enjoying whatever series you are reading, if you are, or if you're reading a standalone, I hope you're enjoying that. And I'm going to let you all go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Please do be kind and love one another, and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. And until next time, happy reading. Bye, everyone.